RingCentral's AI receptionist uses voice AI to answer on the first ring, so you'll never miss a call again. In just a few minutes, you can personalize your own AI receptionist to answer questions, route calls, schedule appointments, and even send texts in multiple languages. Plus, it's easy to scale. Create unlimited AI receptionists across any phone system. It's all powered by one reliable platform for effortless AI communications. See for yourself at ringcentral.com. RingCentral, voice of your business.
3 8-year-old boys ride their bikes toward Robin Hood Hills on May 5th, 1993. By sunset, they're missing. By morning, they're found bound and murdered in a drainage ditch. Within 3 weeks, 3 teenagers are arrested. Case solved. Community relieved. Justice served. But 30 years later, we face a haunting question. Did we remember this case correctly? Or did fear and prejudice create a false memory so powerful it nearly destroyed 3 more innocent lives? Intent. It's what separates accident from murder, passion from premeditation, justice from revenge. Welcome to Deadly Intent, where we explore the darkest corners of criminal psychology to understand not just what happened, but why it happened. I'm your host, Carman, and I've spent years studying the twisted motivations behind humanity's most disturbing crimes. If you're new to Deadly Intent, this is where we dig deep into the psychology of murder, examining the intent that drives killers, the biases that corrupt investigations, and the social forces that can transform victims into perpetrators. We don't just tell you what happened. We examine the criminal psychology that explains why it happened. You can find Deadly Intent wherever you get your podcasts. If you're enjoying the show, please take a moment to rate and review us. It really helps other true crime fans discover our deep dives into criminal psychology. And if you're craving more content, you can find my other shows in the EerieCast network, including Freaky Folklore for supernatural legends and cryptids, and Destination Terror, where we explore the world's most haunted locations. Today we're examining one of the most disturbing cases in American criminal justice, not because of what the killer did, but because of how collective psychology transformed an entire community's memory of events, turning victims into perpetrators while allowing the real monster to walk free for 30 years.
RingCentral's AI receptionist uses voice AI to answer on the first ring, so you'll never miss a call again. In just a few minutes, you can personalize your own AI receptionist to answer questions, route calls, schedule appointments, and even send texts in multiple languages. Plus, it's easy to scale. Create unlimited AI receptionists across any phone system. It's all powered by one reliable platform for effortless AI communications. See for yourself at ringcentral.com. RingCentral, voice of your business.
West Memphis, Arkansas, 1993. A working-class town of 28,000 in the grip of America's satanic panic. Moral hysteria convincing parents nationwide that devil-worshipping cults systematically target children. May 5th, 1993, 6 to 6:30 p.m. 8-year-old Stevie Branch, Michael Moore, and Christopher Byers meet to ride bikes. Stevie lives with construction worker stepfather Terry Hobbs, known for his temper. Christopher lives with Mark Byers, whose volatile behavior is notorious throughout the neighborhood. Michael, the quiet one, comes from a stable family. 7 p.m. When Stevie doesn't return for dinner, panic begins. These aren't children who miss dinner without calling. 8 p.m. All 3 confirmed missing. Community-wide search erupts as parents realize their worst nightmare is materializing. 10 p.m. Police officially join what has become a desperate search through the night. May 6, 1993, 10:30 a.m. Bodies discovered in Robin Hood Hills drainage ditch. The scene is devastating. 3 small bodies naked, bound with their own shoelaces, showing signs of brutal bleeding. Most shocking, Christopher Byers has been castrated and mutilated in ways that suggest either ritualistic intent or explosive personal rage. The crime scene immediately puzzles investigators. Little blood despite massive violence. Area appears swept clean. Bodies positioned deliberately underwater, suggesting both forensic awareness and psychological satisfaction from the arrangement. The brutality reveals specific criminal intent that investigators completely misunderstood. Christopher's castration alone reveals everything about the killer's psychology. This level of sexual mutilation directed at one specific child indicates someone who viewed Christopher as property that had been corrupted. The castration represents ultimate assertion of power and control, suggesting the killer had deep psychological issues around masculinity and authority. The mutilation was retribution for some perceived wrong, real or imagined. Someone felt Christopher had defied them, embarrassed them, or threatened their authority in ways that demanded the ultimate punishment. Stevie and Michael weren't primary targets. They became collateral damage who witnessed Christopher's assault. The killer's psychology demanded permanent silence. Their deaths were calculated necessities, not crimes of passion. Robin Hood Hills was chosen because of intimate knowledge. This wasn't exploration. It was someone who understood the area's seclusion, knew when it would be empty, and felt comfortable operating there. Someone with long-standing access to these children and knowledge of their favorite play locations. The positioning of the bodies underwater shows calculated thinking. The killer understood enough about forensics to attempt evidence destruction while maintaining psychological satisfaction from arranging the victims in specific ways that held meaning for them. The psychological profile points unmistakably to someone with authority over these children, someone they trusted enough to follow into isolated woods, someone with personal motivation for violence against Christopher Byers specifically, someone whose rage erupted from intimate knowledge rather than stranger violence. This was not the work of teenage devil worshippers. This was family violence escalated to unthinkable extremes. Facing enormous pressure and national media attention, West Memphis police need suspects immediately. The community demands answers. Parents want someone to blame. Politicians need reassurance that the threat has been contained. But instead of methodically following evidence toward suspects, investigators begin the dangerous process of fitting evidence to match predetermined targets. May 10th, 1993. Police received tip about Damien Eccles, 18, known throughout West Memphis for his black clothing, heavy metal music, and Wiccan beliefs. In the context of 1993's Satanic Panic, these interests transformed from teenage rebellion into evidence of murderous capability. May 19th, 1993. Jason Baldwin, 16, becomes suspect solely for his friendship with Damien. His crime is loyalty to someone the community has already decided is guilty. June 3rd, 1993. Jessie Misskelley Jr., 17, with an IQ of 72, placing him in borderline intellectual disability range, becomes the key to the entire case. Investigators desperately needed the killers to be outsiders because investigating respected community members like Terry Hobbs or Mark Byers meant confronting psychologically unbearable realities, acknowledging that stepfathers, authority figures trusted with children's safety, could be killers would face the community to confront that monsters look like normal, respected community members. Evil comes from within their own social structures. Their fundamental ability to identify dangerous people was catastrophically flawed. They had failed to protect children from people they knew, trusted, and lived alongside daily. This acknowledgement would shatter the community's sense of safety and order. It was psychologically easier to blame outsiders. The pressure to solve this case quickly transcended justice. It was about career preservation. An unsolved child murder case destroys police careers, ends political futures, and devastates department reputations. The investigators needed suspects who would satisfy public outrage while protecting their professional standing and community relationships. Once Damien Eccles was identified as a potential suspect, every subsequent investigation decision served one overriding purpose: validating that initial assumption. The investigation transformed from a search for truth into a case-building exercise designed to confirm what they had already decided. Evidence was interpreted to support predetermined conclusions rather than followed where it led. By targeting teenagers who looked and acted different, investigators weren't just solving a crime, they were validating community prejudice and fears. The message was clear. Your instincts about outsiders and changing times are correct. The threat comes from people who challenge our values, not from people like us. The teenagers served a crucial psychological function beyond solving the crime. They absorbed the community's rage, terror, and need for vengeance, allowing everyone else to feel safe again. The investigators' intent was providing sacrificial victims who would restore the community's psychological equilibrium and sense of control. This wasn't malicious prosecution. It wasn't something more dangerous. Sincere belief in a narrative that served deep psychological needs for comfort, control, and community validation. Jessie Misskelley is brought in for questioning and subjected to 12 hours of interrogation pressure. Only 46 minutes are recorded, a critical violation that conceals the most psychologically manipulative portion of the questioning. When the recording begins, Jessie has already been psychologically prepared to provide the confession investigators desperately need. With an IQ of 72, Jessie cannot process the permanent implications of his words. His entire psychological intent focuses on making the immediate discomfort stop. The interrogators have created a scenario where cooperation through confession represents the only escape from unbearable psychological pressure. The 12-hour interrogation wasn't about discovering truth. It was about creating validation for their predetermined theory. The investigators' intent was extracting statements that would confirm Damien's guilt, regardless of factual accuracy or internal consistency. Jessie's false confession demonstrates textbook compliant false confession, giving investigators what they want while knowing it's untrue. His intent wasn't deception. It was cooperation with authority figures who had convinced him that helping them solve the case was his moral obligation, even if the help wasn't truthful. The confession served the community's psychological need for certainty and closure. Its obvious errors and contradictions weren't problems to be solved. They were features that allowed people to dismiss inconsistencies as evidence of Jessie's intellectual limitations rather than his innocence. The confession's fatal flaws: timeline impossibilities, murders described occurring at 9 a.m. when the boys weren't even missing yet, physical evidence conflicts, rope described instead of shoelaces used for binding, location errors requiring investigator correction during questioning, complete absence of specific knowledge only a participant would possess, answers changing in real time based on investigator prompts and corrections. This wasn't interrogation producing memory recall. It was psychological abuse designed to manufacture evidence that would validate false beliefs about teenage Satanists while protecting the real killer. June 3rd, evening. All 3 teenagers arrested for capital murder. The community celebrates. Justice appears swift and certain. The real killer successfully deflects suspicion onto convenient scapegoats. The Trials of the West Memphis 3 represents a masterclass in how fear can masquerade as justice and prejudice can override evidence.
RingCentral will completely transform the way you work. It gives you built-in AI across all your business conversations. Your phone system has an AI receptionist that answers calls 24/7. Your video meetings have AI that takes notes instantly. Even your contact center has AI, so you can help customers faster. It all comes together in one reliable platform for effortless AI communications. See for yourself at ringcentral.com. RingCentral, voice of your business.
January 1994. Jessie Misskelley's separate trial. Jessie is tried alone, with his demonstrably false confession serving as the prosecution's primary evidence. The case becomes circular. He confessed, therefore he's guilty. He's guilty, therefore his confession must be true. Defense attorneys attempt to explain the psychological factors leading to false confession, but they're fighting fundamental assumptions about human behavior. Jurors cannot comprehend that innocent people confess to participating in child murder, especially when the confession provides details about the crime. The confession's massive errors, timeline impossibilities, evidence contradictions, location mistakes, are explained away as results of Jessie's intellectual limitations, rather than proof of falsity. This creates insidious circular reasoning. His confession validates his guilt, and its problems validate his limitations, not his innocence. January 26, 1994. Jessie Misskelley convicted and sentenced to life plus 40 years. March 1994. Damien Echols and Jason Baldwin joint trial. The prosecution's case against Damien and Jason consists entirely of character assassination and guilt by association. Extensive testimony about Damien's clothing preferences, musical tastes, reading habits, and religious beliefs. None constitutes evidence of violent behavior, but it paints him as fundamentally different and therefore dangerous. Despite being legally inadmissible against co-defendants, Jessie's confession hangs over the trial. Jurors know it exists, and its very existence implies guilt through association. The prosecution presents witnesses claiming expertise in occult crime, describing the murders as satanic ritual killings, despite having no evidence supporting this theory. Meaningless physical evidence, a few fibers that came from Damien's clothing, or from dozens of other sources, presented as significant proof when they proved nothing. The prosecutor's strategy wasn't evidence-based. It was designed to exploit community terror for professional advancement. Their psychological intent involved positioning themselves as protectors against supernatural evil, using community fear to overcome weak evidence, building careers on high-profile convictions, regardless of actual guilt, and satisfying public bloodlust while avoiding difficult investigative work. Judge David Burnett's inappropriate conduct reveals specific psychological intent, using judicial authority to validate community prejudices rather than ensure fair proceedings. His bias wasn't accidental. It was purposeful alignment with popular opinion to maintain social and political standing within the community. The focus on Damien's appearance, interests, and beliefs served a specific purpose, transforming a murder trial into a morality trial. The prosecution's intent was convincing jurors that regardless of evidence, these defendants represented everything threatening about changing social norms and youthful rebellion. The prosecution understood they were providing human sacrifices to calm community rage. Their intent wasn't justice. It was social restoration through ritualistic punishment of outsiders who challenged conventional norms and comfortable beliefs. The prosecution's psychological strategy deliberately exploited known cognitive biases, fear of the unknown, need for simple explanations for complex tragedies, and tendency to attribute evil characteristics to those who appear different. Their intent was bypassing rational analysis and triggering emotional decision-making that would override logical evaluation of evidence. This wasn't prosecution. It was organized community therapy, designed to restore psychological equilibrium through destruction of convenient scapegoats. March 18, 1994. Damien Echols sentenced to death by lethal injection. Jason Baldwin sentenced to life without parole. The community celebrates. Justice appears served. 3 killers will pay for their crimes. But no evidence has actually connected these teenagers to the murders. Instead, 3 more young lives have been destroyed by a system that prioritized psychological comfort over factual accuracy. While the community focused its rage and terror on convenient scapegoats, the actual perpetrator walked among them, someone with genuine access to the victims, opportunity to commit the crime, and psychological motivation rooted in personal pathology rather than satanic fantasy. The failure to properly investigate alternative suspects represents more than investigative incompetence. It demonstrates how confirmation bias can blind entire communities to obvious truths. Terry Hobbs was Stevie Branch's stepfather, a construction worker with a documented history of violent behavior and an explosive temper well known throughout the neighborhood. From a criminal psychology perspective, stepfathers represent a statistically significant risk factor in child homicides, a fact investigators chose to ignore. Advanced testing revealed a hair found in the ligatures binding Michael Moore that is consistent with Terry Hobbs' DNA. This represents the only significant DNA evidence found at the crime scene, and it points directly to someone the original investigation barely considered. Terry's conduct following the murders raised numerous red flags that investigators dismissed or ignored. He demonstrated unusual knowledge of crime scene details before their public release, made statements about the victim's condition suggesting first-hand knowledge, and showed emotional responses that seemed rehearsed and inappropriate for someone learning information for the first time. Terry's account of his activities on May 5th contained several problematic elements that were never adequately investigated. He claimed to work until 5 p.m., but coworkers later provided conflicting information about his schedule. Multiple witnesses later placed him searching specifically in Robin Hood Hills, where the bodies were found, before other searchers arrived, and his explanations for this knowledge were inconsistent. Several witnesses reported seeing Terry Hobbs with the boys that evening, yelling at them in ways that suggested anger and authority conflict. These witnesses described him as agitated and controlling, behaviors consistent with someone whose authority was being challenged by children who wouldn't obey. The evidence pointing to Terry Hobbs reveals specific psychological intent consistent with family annihilator psychology and domestic violence escalation. Terry's potential involvement suggests intent driven by rage at children who defied his parental authority. Stepfather relationships often involve complex dynamics around control, discipline, and acceptance. If Stevie and his friends challenged Terry's authority or embarrassed him in some way, his psychology might have demanded extreme punishment to reassert dominance. The level of violence suggests someone who viewed these children as property that required discipline. The specific mutilation of Christopher Byers might indicate Terry's intent to punish the child he perceived as the ringleader or instigator who led Stevie into defiant behavior. Once violence began against one child, Terry's psychology would have demanded eliminating all witnesses. This explains why all 3 boys died, despite Stevie being his primary target. The other children became threats to his security and freedom. Terry's post-crime behavior reveals calculated psychological intent to redirect suspicion. His immediate focus on the teenagers, his demonstrations of supposedly insider knowledge, and his performance of appropriate grief all suggest someone working to control the narrative and investigation. Terry's familiarity with Robin Hood Hills and his suspicious presence during searches suggests someone who needed to monitor the investigation and maintain psychological control over the crime scene. This behavior is consistent with killers who return to scenes to relive their crimes or ensure evidence concealment. Mark Byers, Christopher's stepfather, presents an equally troubling psychological profile. Known throughout West Memphis for erratic behavior, violent outbursts, and domestic violence history, Mark exhibited numerous red flags that investigators failed to pursue. In 1994, Mark Byers gave a knife to HBO documentary makers filming about the case. Subsequent testing revealed blood on the knife consistent with Christopher's blood type. When confronted about this evidence, Mark's explanations were inconsistent, evasive, and highly suspicious. Mark's conduct throughout the investigation was bizarre and attention-seeking. in ways that suggested guilt rather than grief. He publicly advocated for the death penalty for the convicted teenagers, while privately expressing doubts about their guilt to various people. His media appearances seemed designed to deflect suspicion from himself, while positioning himself as the ultimate grieving father. Mark provided conflicting accounts of his activities on May 5th that were never adequately resolved. His explanations changed depending on who asked and when, suggesting someone trying to construct an alibi, rather than simply recounting events. Mark Byers' behavior patterns suggest different but equally disturbing psychological intent, rooted in narcissistic personality traits and attention-seeking pathology. Mark's psychology reveals intent driven by need for narcissistic supply, using his son's tragedy to gain attention, sympathy, and social validation. His numerous media appearances and dramatic public statements suggest someone feeding off the attention generated by the case. Mark's contradictory statements and erratic behavior served specific psychological purposes, creating so much confusion and contradiction that establishing truth became impossible. By generating multiple conflicting narratives, he made investigative focus difficult, while maintaining plausible explanations for any evidence. Mark consistently positioned himself as the ultimate victim, the grieving father seeking justice for his murdered son. This performance allowed him to deflect suspicion while gaining sympathy and support from community members and media figures. The knife with Christopher's blood reveals disturbing psychological intent. Keeping evidence as a memento while eventually giving it away suggests someone who derived psychological satisfaction from possessing proof of their crime, while testing whether investigators would connect obvious evidence. Mark's apparent helpfulness to investigators and media served to position himself as someone eager to find the truth, rather than someone hiding it. This cooperation facade is common among killers who insert themselves into investigations to monitor progress and control narrative.
RingCentral will completely transform the way you work. It gives you built-in AI across all your business conversations. Your phone system has an AI receptionist that answers calls 24/7. Your video meetings have AI that takes notes instantly. Even your contact center has AI, so you can help customers faster. It all comes together in one reliable platform for effortless AI communications. See for yourself at ringcentral.com. RingCentral, voice of your business.
The failure to properly investigate Terry Hobbs and Mark Byers demonstrates several psychological phenomena that protected them from scrutiny. Stepfathers occupy positions of respect and authority within family structures, making it psychologically difficult for investigators and community members to view them as threats to the children they're supposed to protect. Investigating respected community members would have forced acknowledgement that evil comes from within established social structures, rather than from outsiders. This reality was too psychologically threatening for a community already traumatized by child murder. Once investigators committed to the teenager theory, evidence pointing elsewhere was dismissed, minimized, or ignored. The psychological investment in their chosen narrative made alternative theories feel like threats to professional competence. Blaming teenagers who looked different and acted unconventionally allowed the community to maintain comfortable beliefs about where evil comes from. Investigating stepfathers would have shattered these comforting illusions about family safety and community protection. Research consistently demonstrates that children are far more likely to be killed by family members, step-parents, or close acquaintances than by strangers or community outsiders. The statistical probability that 3 unconnected teenagers would randomly target and brutally murder 3 children they didn't know approaches 0. In contrast, the probability that a violent stepfather with documented anger issues, access to the victims, and knowledge of their routines would kill children in his care is tragically common in criminal statistics. By ignoring these statistical realities, investigators prioritize psychological comfort over investigative logic. From 1994 to 2011, 3 innocent young men lived the nightmare of wrongful conviction, while their supposed victim's real killer remained free, protected by a system more committed to validating its mistakes than correcting them. Damien spent his adult life in virtual isolation on Arkansas death row, experiencing the psychological torture of knowing the state was actively working to execute him for crimes he didn't commit. Death row conditions are designed to break inmates mentally and prepare them for execution. Sensory deprivation, minimal human contact, constant awareness of impending death. For an innocent man, this experience represents a special form of psychological torture. Damien survived by reading voraciously, practicing meditation, and using his intellect as an escape from brutal physical reality. The brilliant teenager entered prison and emerged as a man shaped by nearly 2 decades of institutional brutality and the constant presence of death. Jason's experience in general population was different but equally devastating. Sent to prison at 16 for loyalty to his friend, Jason missed every formative experience that transforms teenagers into adults. Graduation, college, first jobs, relationships, career development, family formation. His conviction created a ripple effect of secondary victims, family members devastated financially and emotionally by legal costs and social stigma, friends who lost faith in justice systems, and community members forced to choose ideas in an increasingly polarized situation. Perhaps most tragic was Jesse's experience. His intellectual disability made him especially vulnerable to prison violence and exploitation. The same cognitive limitations that made him susceptible to false confession also made him an easy target for more sophisticated inmates seeking to exploit his vulnerabilities. Even as the 3 men suffered in prison, evidence of their innocence continued mounting. 2007 DNA breakthrough. Advanced testing found no genetic material from any convicted defendant at the crime scene. Instead, testing revealed DNA consistent with Terry Hobbs and a friend who was with him on May 5th. This evidence didn't just fail to connect the WM3 to the crime. It actively pointed toward alternative suspects who had never been properly investigated. As public attention focused on the case, additional witnesses emerged with information that further undermined the convictions. Multiple people reported seeing Terry Hobbs in Robin Hood Hills during crucial time frames. Witnesses described suspicious behavior by Hobbs in the days following the murders, and additional evidence emerged about problematic interrogation techniques used on Jessie. Independent forensic experts began examining evidence and finding massive flaws in original prosecutional theories. Blood spatter analysis, wound pattern examination, and timeline reconstruction all contradicted key elements of the prosecution's case. The HBO Paradise Lost series brought national attention to obvious problems with the convictions, inspiring a movement of supporters who conducted independent investigations and uncovered evidence that professional investigators had missed or ignored. The Arkansas Supreme Court ordered new hearings based on DNA evidence and newly discovered witnesses. For the first time since 1994, realistic hope emerged that the convictions might be overturned and the men freed. August 19, 2011, the Alford plea controversy. Rather than face new trials where mounting evidence might result in complete exoneration and potential civil liability, the state of Arkansas offered an unusual legal compromise: Alford pleas, allowing the defendants to maintain their innocence while pleading guilty to reduce charges for immediate freedom. The Alford plea satisfied no one completely, but offered the defendants escape from continued imprisonment versus uncertain outcomes of new trials. After 18 years and 78 days in prison, Damien Eccles, Jason Baldwin, and Jessie Misskelley walked free, but remained legally guilty despite overwhelming evidence of innocence. The moment was bittersweet. Justice hadn't been fully served. The real killer had never been prosecuted. The West Memphis 3 remained legally guilty, and the victims' families were denied true closure and accountability. The West Memphis 3 case demonstrates how entire communities develop false memories about events, creating collective delusions more powerful than truth. Shocking child murders create intense emotional arousal, fundamentally changing how people process information. When faced with inexplicable horror, humans desperately seek explanations that make sense of senseless events. Once a preferred explanation emerges, all information is filtered to support it, while contradictory evidence is dismissed. False beliefs strengthen through interaction. When everyone believes something, confidence increases dramatically. Satanic panic created perfect conditions for false memory formation by lowering evidence standards, creating group polarization, suppressing dissent, and generating false corroboration. Media coverage emphasized sensational elements over facts, creating narratives that felt more compelling than complex truth. Repetition made false stories feel true, regardless of accuracy. Even when presented with overwhelming contrary evidence, false memories persist because admitting error requires acknowledging fundamental judgment flaws. Strong emotional investment makes false memories feel more real than factual ones. False beliefs become part of group identity. Social identity threatened by abandoning community beliefs. In our focus on wrongful conviction, we must remember 3 little boys who lost their lives. Stevie Branch, 8 years old, loved baseball, kind to other children. His mother now believes in the West Memphis Three's innocence. Michael Moore, quiet, thoughtful, artistic. His family maintains belief in convictions, creating painful community divisions. Christopher Byers, energetic, adventurous, full of life. His stepfather Mark became a controversial figure, at times supporting and questioning convictions. These children deserved justice, not rushed judgment that characterized their case. Wrongful convictions created additional victims. Damian Eccles lost 18 years, including entire young adulthood, spent on death row for crime he didn't commit. Jason Baldwin, imprisoned from 16 to 34, missing crucial developmental years. Jessie Misskelley, intellectual disability made him particularly vulnerable to system that failed to protect him. The real killer remains free. The greatest injustice. Christopher, Michael, and Stevie never received true justice. Their killer has lived free for 30 years, protected by a system that prioritized quick closure over accurate investigation. Closing analysis. The psychology of intent and injustice. The brutality inflicted on Christopher reveals criminal intent investigators misunderstood. Sexual domination intent. Castration was ultimate assertion of power over helpless victim, indicating deep psychological issues around control and masculinity. Personal vendetta intent. Christopher was specifically targeted, not randomly selected. The killer harbored personal animosity toward this child. Control and concealment intent. Body positioning showed someone familiar with area who understood evidence destruction while maintaining psychological satisfaction. This was someone with authority over these children, someone they trusted, whose personal pathology erupted into unspeakable violence. The system's intent. Psychological comfort over truth. Wrongful convictions serve specific psychological functions. Investigators' intent. Protect professional reputations and psychological comfort by avoiding reality that respected community members could be child killers. Community intent. Restore psychological equilibrium by punishing outsiders who represented everything threatening about changing social norms. The scapegoating intent. The teenagers absorbed community rage and terror, allowing everyone else to feel safe again. This wasn't malicious prosecution, it was ritualistic sacrifice of convenient victims to restore social peace. The intent to ignore evidence. Every investigative failure served psychological needs. Ignoring Terry Hobbs' DNA protected community from confronting stepfather killers. Dismissing Mark Byers' knife evidence avoided investigating someone who looked like grieving parent. Accepting Jessie's false confession provided validation everyone desperately wanted. The ultimate intent: self-deception as survival. The most disturbing aspect: psychological self-deception became a survival mechanism for entire community. Believing lies felt safer than confronting the truth. 30 years later, the psychology of intent offers crucial lessons. Monsters often hide behind masks of respectability and authority. Pressure to solve cases quickly can override commitment to solve them correctly. Need for psychological comfort can overwhelm demand for truth. Legal proceedings can serve social functions rather than justice. The West Memphis 3 case demonstrates that intent matters more than outcome and understanding how justice fails. Good intentions without critical thinking and evidence-based reasoning destroy lives just as effectively as malicious prosecution. In April 2024, the Arkansas Supreme Court approved new DNA testing using advanced MBAC technology on the shoelace ligatures. This technology can extract minute DNA particles from inside fabric fibers that previous testing couldn't access. Results are expected in early 2026 and may finally identify the real killer, 32 years after 3 innocent children lost their lives and 3 innocent teenagers lost decades to wrongful imprisonment. The evidence was recently sent to Bode Laboratories in Virginia for testing. But there's a catch. The evidence may be destroyed in the process, a possibility the West Memphis 3 are aware of. Dan Stidham, the former defense attorney who has never stopped fighting for the truth, explained the gravity of this moment. It was important to obtain their consent and make sure they understood that if we go forward with the retesting, that this could be the end of the road as far as future retesting. None of them hesitated at all. Think about that for a moment. 3 men who lost 18 years of their lives to wrongful conviction. Damian Eccles, who spent those 18 years on death row. Jason Baldwin, who entered prison at 16. And Jessie Misskelley, whose intellectual disability made him the perfect target for a false confession. All agreed to risk destroying the only remaining evidence that might fully exonerate them. Why? Because they know what we've explored today, that intent matters more than comfort. Truth matters more than convenient lies, and justice delayed is not justice denied, if it finally arrives. The West Memphis 3 have made their choice. Risk everything for the chance at truth. Soon, we'll discover if 32 years of fighting for justice will finally reveal the intent that destroyed 3 innocent lives and allowed a killer to escape accountability. I'm Carman, and this has been Deadly Intent. Until next time, remember, the most dangerous criminals aren't always those who look dangerous, and the greatest threat to justice often comes from our own psychological need to believe comfortable lies rather than confront uncomfortable truths. This episode is dedicated to Christopher Byers, Michael Moore, and Stevie Branch, and to all victims of wrongful conviction. Recognition to journalists, filmmakers, and advocates who expose the truth, and to organizations working to prevent future wrongful convictions through criminal justice reform.
RingCentral will completely transform the way you work. It gives you built-in AI across all your business conversations. Your phone system has an AI receptionist that answers calls 24/7. Your video meetings have AI that takes notes instantly. Even your contact center has AI, so you can help customers faster. It all comes together in one reliable platform for effortless AI communications. See for yourself at ringcentral.com. RingCentral, voice of your business.